Well, hello, folks out there in YouTube land. Got a big show lined up for you. Let's get right on into it. All right, folks, it's the 9-game schedule question, and we're going to talk about why the SEC can't pull this off. They're just not. I don't think they're going to move to the 9-game schedule, and I've got a lot of reasons why. I've been looking into this heavily. Now, as many of you know, there have been two formats that everybody's been looking at: the 5+11, then the 4-4, 2-2, 1+3, both of which go to a 16-team college football playoff. There is no talk of staying at 12 teams past this coming year. So I think we've put to bed the whole question, are we moving to 16? The big question is which format. And I've been looking at the conferences to see where everybody stands, and I think I've got a pretty good idea. Rather than sit here and talk about it, I'm going to show you in a picture format because I know y'all folks like that, and it's just easier to talk about it that way. All right, so here's the 5-11 and then the 4-4, 2-2, 1+3. The 5+11 has been really in vogue over the last couple of days. Everybody's been excited about it. The Big 12 loves it. The ACC love it because they don't want to be stuck with only 2 and SEC and Big 10 getting 4 automatic qualifiers. They'd rather it be each conference gets 1 guaranteed with the conference champion and then 11 at large. The SEC is okay with this in its current form, as long as everything stays the same. The Big 10 is not, because they want the SEC to move to a 9-game conference schedule. The 4-4, 2-2, 1, which has been pushed by the Big 10, they're in favor of that. They want 4 automatic qualifiers in the Big 10. The SEC is kind of hot and cold on it. The Big 12 hates it, and the ACC hate it. So given those circumstances, you can see the quandary. The SEC is under a lot of pressure. If we're going to go with the 5-11, all the conferences want the SEC to move to a 9-game. And I don't think the SEC is going to do it. If you've noticed, Greg Sankey's been pushing against that, which initially was in favor of it, but once he got the statistics and started hearing from the coaches, and my sources are telling me the coaches are telling him to stick it. They're not moving to the 9-game because they know it'll knock them not only out of the playoff, but also out of bowl games, and they'll get fired. Because the SEC is a brutal conference from top to bottom. It just is. And there's nothing can be taken for granted. You don't have any easy wins in there. Even the Vanderbilt that you usually can count on, they beat Auburn and Alabama last year. So you just can't count on any easy wins. And there's a great article in here by Bill Connolly. We're going to talk about that here in a minute. He goes heavily in depth of why the SEC moving to a 9-game conference schedule is going to have some difficulties. And let's also hear from Heather Danish on what she's hearing.
Sankey said yesterday that he believes that independent decisions can be made. So he said that he thinks that you can make a scheduling decision without knowing the playoff, although it's not ideal and the timeline is certainly not optimal. But you're 100% right, because multiple athletic directors went on the record yesterday. I asked Scott Strickland, can you get to a 9-game conference schedule without AQs and knowing the playoff? And he said, I can't, personally.
He'll be here in a minute, we'll ask him.
Yeah, you can ask him in a minute. But there's a definite tie-in for the athletic directors. The question is, can Greg Sankey get the athletic directors on the same page as the coaches? And can everyone get on the same page with a 5+11 model? Because I can tell you this, there's support outside of the SEC for 5+11. Brett Yormark told me today, it's been my first choice all along. I presented it in Charlotte. I've talked to other conference commissioners throughout the league who have said, hey, this would be great. It's a good alternative. We love it.
Okay, yeah. So as you can see, 5+11 is very popular outside of the Big 10. They're the only ones that are kind of, because they're concerned. Let's just be blunt. They don't like the SEC with an 8-game conference schedule having the opportunity to get a bunch of spots in the playoff, the 16-team playoff.
That's not fair!
Don't raise your voice to me.
And why they think that is because Ole Miss would have got in last year, Alabama and South Carolina, meaning instead of the SEC getting 3 teams in, they would have gotten 6. And that's probably the way it's going to be for a lot of that 16-team playoff. You're going to get a bunch of SEC teams in because it's the strongest conference top to bottom. And with an 8-game conference schedule, they've got some easier ball games they can have. Whereas the Big Ten feels like, hey, we've got a 9-game conference schedule. It's not fair. And while if you look at just the numbers, that would be accurate, there are a lot of easy wins in the Big Ten. And every Big Ten team knows that. You know, Ohio State, Penn State, Oregon, a bunch of those types of teams, they can pretty much go down their schedule, and there's 3 or 4 games they're not even worried about. But now let's get into why Greg Sankey is getting a lot of pushback on the 9-game conference schedule. Now, I'm going to get into this article. This is, again, by Bill Connolly. He did a ton of work on this. I'm only going to show a few highlights. He even went all the way to putting a schedule together with 9 teams for the SEC. I mean, he wore it out. But here's the critical parts of this entire thing. If you take Georgia, for example, they've got an 84.9% chance of going at least 9-3 with the current 8-game schedule. That drops to 79.6 with a 9-game schedule, which is only a 5-point drop. But the reason that is because Georgia would probably win that 9th game. For everybody else, it's not that simple. Take the Florida Gators, for example. They currently have a 43% chance of going 9-3 next year. If you went to a 9-game, it would drop to 19.6. So their chances would drop by more than half.
Oh, hell no!
Which is terrible. You know Florida doesn't want to go from 43% chance of making the playoff down to 19. Then you take a team that's towards the bottom like Vanderbilt, who was good last year, by the way. They've got a 10% chance of going 9-3. If they go to a 9-game schedule, it goes to 0.1. So they go from a 1 in 10 chance of being 9-3 to basically 0. You think Vanderbilt's going to go along with that? How about Mississippi State, Kentucky? Auburn's been struggling. Oklahoma's been struggling. None of those teams are going to be wanting to go to a 9-game conference schedule, especially if your job's on the line. If you think Billy Napier's all fired up about playing 9 SEC teams, you crazy. So no matter how bad the Big Ten wants this to happen and Tony Petitti, I just don't think it will currently.
How about no, you crazy Dutch bastard?
Now, the 4-4-2-2-1 plus 3 has got some nice positives to it, some of which I really like. And this is Urban Meyer, and he talks about the positives of the 4-4-2-2-1.
There's going to be one big negative that I'm going to hit in a minute, and the negative is that there's 2 conferences not getting treated the same as the other 2 conferences. So this is the 4-4-2-2-1-1. 4 teams from the SEC, 4 teams from the Big Ten, 2 from the Big 12, 2 from the ACC, and then 1 independent, 1 from the lower conferences. There's a lot of reasons why I love it. Number 1 is this now eliminates the selection committee. They are no longer a selection committee. It's not selection, it's access. That means you win your conference or in your top 4 teams, which I'll get to in a minute, you're not selection anymore. The only thing, the committee, it's not selection anymore. It should be a seeding committee. And that's it. And maybe they'll come up with a way of eliminating that. So that's number 1. Number 2, 6 teams in the Big Ten, in the SEC, are still swinging at the end of the season. And that means that if you see the numbers, 40 to 50 teams on last week of the season, championship week, are still in the hunt as opposed to 15 to 18. And then number 3 is you don't get penalized for non-conference. Because you are going to see, you've seen, Penn State's got a horrific non-conference schedule. I don't blame them. If I'm the head coach at Ohio State in the current model, I'm not playing Texas. I'm not doing that. Is it right? No, of course it's right. You as a player, me as a coach, hell yeah, let's go play Texas. Find out where we're at. You train a little hard in the offseason when you see Texas at number 1 in your first game of the schedule. It's no longer a selection committee. It's an access-oriented system, which I'm all in favor of.
All right, yeah. So as you can see, whether you go 5-11 or the 4-4-2-2-1, there's positives and negatives. There are some big positives to the 4-4-2-2-1 that I really like. And Urban talked about that with the 6 teams still swinging at the end of the season in the SEC and Big Ten. And that would be the SEC championship play-in weekend, which would be a monster weekend. Not only would you have the top 2, for example, last year playing for the championship, or they could be given a bye. 3 would play 6, 4 would play 5. That weekend would be a monster, and it would make a ton of money. And 2 extra teams would have a chance to get in the playoff. And again, that's for the Big Ten as well. So that'd be 2 fan bases thrilled. at the end of the year and that everybody would still be involved. The bad part for the 4-4-2-2-1, especially where things stand, well, I'll show you in this little deal. Currently, the SEC would get 6.2 teams that would be projected to be 9-3 or better, which would probably get you in the playoff. If you go to 9 games, that average shrinks to 4.7, which means every year 1.5 teams wouldn't get in. So every 2 years, you've knocked out 3 SEC teams from the playoff every 24 months.
I'll turn this damn bus around. That'll end your precious little field trip pretty damn quick, huh?
So there's a lot of pressure not to go to the 9-game conference schedule either way. Because realize with the 4-4-2-2-1, there's still 3 at large that are sitting out there. And the SEC might pick up 1, 2, or even 3 of them. So I don't know that Sankey's going to be able to get that worked out. I just don't, no matter how much pressure the Big Ten puts on Greg Sankey. So I did want to discuss this. I didn't do a show yesterday. I think it's the first time in a couple of months.
I was unavoidably detained.
Yeah, I was tied up on the golf course playing 18 holes of golf. But anyway, I'm back today. So that's your explanation of where we're at. It doesn't look like the 9-game conference schedule's going to happen. And the 5-11, we'll see what, man, that's going to be tough. Everybody wants the 5-11, but the Big Ten's kind of a no there. So something's got to give. I don't know who's going to give. I don't know if it's going to be Petiti or if it's going to be Sankey. I kind of feel like it'll probably be Petiti on this one. But again, there are positives, so we go the other way. If you like this content, be sure to hit that like button. Let's me know. We'll continue to cover all these big college sports stories. If you've not subscribed, boom, 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 hit that button right there. It won't cost you a dime. Help you get my videos. And right over here is the most recent video, YouTube. Thanks, you'll enjoy. We'll see you next time on Sports Talk Jay.